In the illustrious Albion kingdom, she was regarded as one of its finest treasures, a porcelain doll of unmatched grace. A name as divine as her appearance, Ange Glaster. The only daughter of Duke Glaster, his pride, his most adored treasure, the house's radiant jewel and future matriarch. Raised behind silk curtains and marble halls, Angel was groomed not just to shine but to rule. But maybe not anymore, because all she wanted now was to escape from this horrible wedding she couldn't even explain how she got trapped in. She shouldn't have been getting married. Especially not looking like this. She looked like a child who had just finished sobbing after being scolded, puffy, swollen, and nothing close to the flawless image they expected of her. She even considered pretending to pass out. Her maid, Annie, who had been so invested in dressing her up as best as she could, asked if she would like more accessories on. What was she insinuating? That Angel wasn't good enough? In a blink, and more to Annie's surprise, Angel flared up, taking it as sarcasm. She calmed down later and asked for the corset to be tightened. After all, Annie wasn't the cause of her predicament. They tightened it with all their strength. How much tighter could it possibly go? But Angel was just frustrated. As they did, she could swear she almost puked out her intestines. She could hardly breathe. A soft knock echoed from the door. It was the palace envoy. His voice was gentle yet urgent as he announced it was time for the wedding. Time already? Was this really happening? Was it not a dream? Angel felt nauseous at the thought of walking down the aisle with a complete stranger. She shrieked as she almost stained her gloves with her makeup. She had unconsciously touched her face in anxiousness. She couldn't afford to mess things up. She needed to keep everything as clean and tidy as possible because she had no idea what awaited her. She calculated her steps and counted her breaths as she walked into the church, down the aisle, with thoughts of just running away from it all. How could God allow this to happen to her? She questioned him silently, as if expecting an answer. The church looked abandoned, shabby chairs, boring gray walls already peeling, cobwebs hanging around every corner. This wasn't her dream wedding. This was a nightmare. And the reason behind it all, the architect of her misery, the hand that set this cruel game in motion. If Glares could kill, he'd be 6 feet under by now. Prince Philip Cardiner, the cunning serpent cloaked in silk, a master of deception, a devil in the guise of royalty. Beneath the polished smile was something far less human and far more dangerous. He was one of the wealthiest and most powerful men in the kingdom. So it wasn't hard for him to lure someone as influential as Duke Glaster into doing his bidding. Duke Glaster had always wanted to share ties with the royal family. So, when a proposal came from them for Angel to marry the next heir to the throne, Prince Philip Cardiner, it felt like an answered prayer. But the second heir, Prince William, was determined to bring his brother down by any means necessary. In his pursuit, he manipulated the nobles into rebelling against Prince Philip, even inciting violence. All with one goal, to claim the position of crown heir for himself. When the chaos ended, William promised to help Angel find a new partner since she had lost hers, only to force her into marrying a lowly half-illegitimate child of the emperor. Far from anything she ever expected. Duke Glaster was furious when he heard. He threw tantrums, rained curses on his daughter. He called her useless for failing at the simple task of seducing the heir to the throne. Angel hadn't even been part of the marriage scheme to begin with. He ranted that she had ruined everything for him. She could only stand and listen, teary-eyed, heart-heavy. She never wanted this. None of it. That was how she defiled her father's expectations, crushed his hopes, and reduced his ambitions to dust. He didn't even show up to the wedding. She was still his daughter, she thought, gloomily approaching the aisle. Maybe she went wrong, but it wasn't enough for him to abandon her like this. No one was present aside from the priest, the prince, and her soon-to-be nightmare. The officiating priest began the ceremonial recitations. With every word, Angel silently wished for something, anything, to end this setup. The latter just stood there, unmoved by it all. Oh, and yes, she hadn't even introduced him. Aiden Fitzroy, the illegitimate son of the emperor. More like an outcast, never seen around the kingdom. He might have had royal blood, but he held no honor, save for his role as a military officer. The congratulatory speech ended, and the priest instructed them to exchange rings. But there was no ring. Her husband and the prince argued about who should have bought one, and Angel could only pity herself at that moment. Were they actually serious? The priest dismissed the argument and told them to seal the marriage with a kiss. She glanced at Aiden and was absolutely certain she wasn't ready to share a kiss with this man. She told the priest to skip it. There was no way she was going to kiss this nonchalant man. He wasn't even dressed properly for the wedding. Maybe he didn't want this either, but still she deserved some respect, right? He wore an old uniform that looked faded and rough. No matter how sudden this was, it was clear he hadn't even tried. How could he insult the Glaster family like this? What insolence! Priest gave his final blessings as slow music began to play, but the keyboardist kept missing his keys. She scoffed at the irony. Blessed? The illegitimate military officer and the Duke's daughter who once dreamt of being empress? More like cursed. It was time to depart, and the man coolly told her she couldn't bring any of her maids. He had to be joking. The argument dragged on until she snapped, fury spilling out in a rush. But he met it with cold indifference. She turned to Annie, snapping at her in frustration, as Annie rushed to bring her calming scent to her nostrils. Angel calmed slightly and insisted again that she wasn't leaving without a maid. She thought that by being adamant, this hothead would have no choice but to give in. To her dismay, he started reducing her luggage. She warned him to stay away from her things. He airily told her the luggage would keep reducing if she kept wasting time. She snatched one from his hand. There was no way she was leaving without her perfumes. She yelled and cursed at him. But as usual, he didn't flinch. Unbothered, he told her there wasn't enough space for all her things. What did he mean by that? She needed everything. She couldn't take his insolence anymore. She cursed him in anger, calling him a cheap husband. Seemed to strike a nerve. She regretted it immediately. He acted like it didn't affect him. He simply said that was exactly why she needed to take only cheap things with her. She knew then she had just worsened things. She turned to her maids, calling out to them like they could help, but they stood still as if they hadn't heard. Were they disrespecting her now because they no longer served her? She scoffed in anger, ranting about reporting to her father. Aiden gave a mocking look. Yeah, right. He clearly knew her father was against the marriage. He hadn't even attended the wedding. Course he wouldn't do anything. Still, she dreamily believed her father would come for her once his anger cooled. Finally, she gave up and told Aiden to stay off her things. She'd go without maids. Through all, they weren't on her side. She convinced herself she just had to endure a little while. She called to her maids to help her into the carriage. Her outfit was another luggage on its own, the corset, the crinoline. Even if she planned to escape, she couldn't do it in that dress. She finally got in. As Annie bade her goodbye, Angel was sure she saw relief in her maid's eyes. Not even a congratulatory word. Just a wave? Looked like Annie had been waiting for this day all her life. That was actually the only kind gesture Angel had gotten from anyone in the Duke's house since the marriage. She sighed. Maybe everyone could finally be happy now. Leslie and Parsley too. At least no one would have to worry about her annoying self anymore. They arrived at what looked like an old farmhouse. There was even a pig shed. Let it not be what she was thinking. They stopped in front of a small old mansion. She assumed it was the servants' quarters because there was no way she'd be living there. Much to her dismay, her husband confirmed her fears. And if that wasn't enough, he told her plainly, there were no servants. She could swear she almost passed out. Angel stood frozen outside the small house, staring in disbelief. Her mind drifted back to memories of her father's mansion, the warmth of luxury, the polished halls, the soft footsteps of maids attending to her every whim. How was she supposed to survive without it all? Now she was drowning in misery and couldn't believe this was truly her reality. She scoffed and told the man there was no way she was going to live in such a place. Without missing a beat, Aiden dismissed her complaints and told her to sleep in the barn instead. Her eyes burned holes into him. If glares had power, the man would have turned to ashes. Inside the house, Aiden Fitzroy scoffed to himself. Philip's fiancée, now allegedly his wife, was a walking tantrum. Her arrogance, pride, and sharp tongue reminded him too much of her original betrothed. They'd have made a perfect match. He let her rant continue, walking away as he muttered that she'd better learn to help herself. That was how he lived, and how he expected her to live now too. Angel, however, wasn't done. She called out, asking for help. Her dress was too wide, too heavy. There was no way she could make it through the doorway like this. Aiden didn't turn. He simply stepped inside and slammed the door shut behind him. Angel let out a furious scream, trembling with disbelief. How could he leave a woman outside, alone in the middle of the woods in the dark? She banged at the door with all her strength, shouting that she refused to live here. No answer. No response. It was humiliating. All her life she had been adored, complimented, pampered. People practically worshipped her. But ever since meeting Aiden Fitzroy, she'd been treated like dirt. She kept pounding until the door suddenly swung open, too quickly. She stumbled forward without warning, falling straight into his arms. Aiden caught her, held her steady for a moment, then warned her coldly. If she dared to keep insulting his house, she would be sleeping in the barn. Angel pushed his hands off her shoulders and snapped at him to go to hell. He didn't even flinch. Instead, he told her she might as well join him. He was going there anyway, thanks to the horrors he'd committed on the battlefield. His voice was emotionless, his eyes devoid of anything remotely human. Her throat tightened. The shiver that ran down her spine betrayed her bravado. Maybe, just maybe, this man wasn't just cold, he was dangerous. He pointed to her room and walked off. Angel hesitated only a moment, then decided, yes, this place was terrible. But the forest? That was worse. She tried to follow him, but her dress made it impossible to move quickly. She tugged and turned, frustrated beyond words. Instead of asking for help, she snapped at the door size. Why was it so small? Aiden, unbothered, replied that he never expected someone wearing that to show up here. Angel cursed the architect, cursed the house, cursed him. Aiden offered to help, but help meant yanking her through the doorframe so hard she rolled onto the floor, her extravagant dress folding around her like a crushed parasol. Mockingly, he told her not to wear dresses like that again. She fired back, saying he had no right to tell her what to wear. She was still her father's daughter, after all. But he reminded her flatly, no. She was his wife now. Angel scoffed and swore she'd be the Duke's daughter until the day she died. He chuckled darkly and pointed out that she would die if she stayed on the floor tangled in a corset. She glared at him, asking for help like it pained her soul. He ignored her again, walking off as her screams echoed after him. Inside his room, Aiden closed the door behind him. He wasn't meant for women like her. Too loud. Too spoiled. Too everything. He stared at his grandfather's photo, trying to find clarity. He didn't want to hurt her, but if he let her go, that cunning half-brother of his would know immediately. And that was a risk he couldn't afford. He'd have to put up with her for now, just until things cooled down. His grandfather's words rang in his head, always be kind to women and children. He sighed. Her voice was still echoing, screaming his name. He groaned and walked back to the living room. Angel was still sprawled on the floor, fuming like a furnace. He helped her up, and to his surprise, she was lighter than he expected. At least I won't have to worry about food wastage, he muttered under his breath. Angel muttered a barely audible thank you, as if it physically hurt her to say it. She then demanded to be shown to her room. Aiden gave her the directions, with a sarcastic "Your Grace, daughter of the Duke" tacked on. She visibly bristled. She turned away, her gown sweeping the floor dramatically behind her. He asked if she wanted dinner. Predictably, she declined, citing exhaustion. She slammed the door to her room. Aiden hadn't even turned back when her scream ripped through the silence. He froze. Oh, for heaven's sake, what now? He muttered under his breath. Could this day get any worse? Aiden found her standing in front of the mirror, frowning at her reflection like it had personally offended her. Angel looked utterly repulsed by her appearance, throwing her arms in the air and shouting for water like it was a matter of life and death. He blinked. Water? That's it? He'd raced down like there was blood on the floor. Huffing, he fetched a bowl of water and returned to find her inspecting it suspiciously, like she expected it to fail some royal cleanliness test. He asked why she needed that much water just to wash her face. She snapped back without missing a beat, saying she knew exactly what she was doing. With slow, deliberate motions, she began washing her face, whispering to herself about how embarrassing this all was. Aiden wondered silently, who the hell even cares how she looks out here? He handed her a towel and casually showed her where the rest were kept. But Angel wasn't done. Her dramatic sighs filled the room as she mumbled about how she'd now have to get things herself. Oh, the horror. Aiden sensed another tantrum brewing and quickly made for the door. If you need anything, call me, he muttered. But just as he reached for the handle, wait! He stopped, barely hiding his exasperation. What now? She hesitated. He turned to face her fully, crossing his arms, waiting. She shifted awkwardly, eyes darting to the floor. Finally, she blurted it out. She needed help changing into her clothes. Her maids weren't here, and she couldn't do it herself. Aiden's brows lifted. Was she serious right now? She started to say more, but he cut her off and told her to follow him to the bedroom. In the bedroom, Angel shifted uncomfortably. The request had been hers, but now that they were actually alone in a room together, doubt crept in. Something about how easily Aiden agreed to help unsettled her. A pang of longing hit her chest. Annie and Sophie used to handle this for her, her trusted maids, her friends. Her voice cracked as she whimpered their names in a theatrical sob. Turn around, Aiden said flatly. It'll be quicker that way. She did. And while he worked on the knots and fastenings behind her, her thoughts wandered. Why are the prettiest dresses always the most uncomfortable? She couldn't breathe. Her stomach was in a constant state of survival. She mentally recounted the torture routine. Thin chemise, suffocating corset, stiff crinoline, layers of robes and skirts. And for what? A royal look? Her gaze flicked to the mirror. Aiden was behind her, focused only on the dress. Suddenly she blurted, "Are we going to be sharing this room?" "No," he said immediately, not even looking up. "There's no reason for that." She blinked. He didn't hesitate. He wasn't flustered. He wasn't even interested. Her teacher's voice popped into her head. Men are beasts when alone with a woman. But this one? He didn't even glance at her. What if he's an herbivore? The ridiculous thought made her gasp dramatically. And for one wild second, she almost wished he would go back to hating her. Felt less confusing. But then he was done. No incident. No weird glances. No sly smirks. He left the room like it meant nothing. Angel stood in stunned silence before collapsing face down on the bed with a long sigh. He really didn't do anything. I'm alive. I can breathe again. But then came the crushing realization tomorrow she'd have to do it all again. She groaned, kicking her legs in the air. I hate this. I hate this so much. Maybe a miracle would come. A charming prince. A portal. Anything. But no, miracles didn't happen in the middle of the woods. Night fell. The house was wrapped in silence. Aiden lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, lost in thought. Then a sound. In a flash, he pulled a gun from his drawer and sat up, listening closely. Footsteps. He raised the weapon and aimed at the door. And that was when the door burst open, and in stepped Angel. She screamed the moment she saw the gun pointed at her. Don't shoot me. I'm sorry. Don't kill me. Aiden blinked in disbelief. I wasn't going to. Lowering the gun, he asked what the hell she was doing there. She babbled something about strange sounds outside. He was about to dismiss her when a rooster crowed. Before he could say a word, she leapt forward and clung to him like a scared kitten. That's the sound. That awful noise. Aiden froze mid-thought. That's a rooster. Angel looked at him like he'd just told her dragons were real. They crow when the sun's about to rise, he explained, returning the gun to the drawer. She gasped like this was life-altering information. It's too loud and weird. Then get rid of it, he replied flatly. She exploded. Why would I do all that for just a rooster? Aiden sighed, already feeling dizzy. But then he noticed something. She wasn't covered properly. Her nightdress, though modest, wasn't made for the chilly air. He pointed it out. "You'll catch a cold walking around like that." She opened her mouth to argue, then froze. Eyes wide. Face flushed. She gasped like she'd just been scandalized, screamed something about perverts, turned her back and bolted out the room. Aiden stood there, dumbfounded. Pervert? She'd come to his room dressed like that, and there was nothing remotely revealing about it. He chuckled to himself. This woman was something else. It was a bright and beautiful morning, but Aiden already had a headache. He stood in front of Angel's door, knocking lightly. "Breakfast is ready." The door creaked open a sliver. Her sleepy, grumpy voice followed. "Just leave it at the door. I'll take it later." He stared blankly at the wood. "Seriously?" "No," he said flatly. "I'm not your servant. Get it from the kitchen if you want it." Without waiting for another word, he shut the door and walked off, biting back his irritation. Ungrateful noble brat. Kept dinner last night too. She'll be down soon enough when hunger bites harder than pride. Babysitting wasn't in his job description. She groaned as she tugged at the stiff bodice. Corset wasn't tight enough, and she couldn't reach the back to fix it. Again, should I ask Aiden? Her lips pursed. Never mind. This same man refused to bring up my breakfast. Doesn't he know nobles are supposed to eat in their rooms? The pettiness burned hotter than her hunger. "I want to go home," she sighed dramatically, eyes misty. Maybe a letter would do it. She shuffled to her writing desk, gathering ink and parchment. Father might have disowned me for failing to seduce the prince, but if he sees how miserable I am, he might take me back. Even the thought made her tear up again. Her stomach growled violently. She finally gave in. Grabbing her skirt in fistfuls, she crept through the hallway, peeking behind doors like a thief. Kitchen. She nudged a door open with her head, and froze. A woman stared back at her from a portrait on the wall, painted in haunting elegance. Her smile was soft, eyes distant. Angel blinked. "Who?" "No time." She pulled the door shut and continued her quest. Her corset sat loose, her hunger climbed, her frustration peaked. And at last, she found it. The kitchen was nothing like the grand halls of home, but it was neat. Humble. Almost peaceful. She noticed a covered dish on the counter and made a beeline for it. She lifted the lid, hopeful. Her face collapsed. Cornmeal? Cornmeal. For breakfast. This was farmer food. Bland, gray peasant food. Still hunger won. She took a spoonful, cold, dry, tasteless. Her face twisted. And then, she noticed a note folded beside the dish. She opened it. "If it tastes bland, mix with molasses." She blinked. Did Aiden write this? Well, who else could it be? They were the only two in the entire house. Her lips twitched. That's unexpectedly cute. She scanned the counter, spotting a few syrup jars. She sniffed one, it smelled sweet. Probably close enough. She dipped a spoon in carefully, but it slipped. The thick syrup splattered across the floor with a loud plop. She stared at the mess, hands still frozen midair. Without thinking, she stretched out her hand. "Someone," she paused. No one came. Right. I don't have maids anymore. She sank into a squat with a long groan, reaching for the rag. But just as she bent forward, her shoe caught her dress hem. And she fell. Hard. Kaya! Her knee slammed into the floor. Pain came sharp and fast. Tears sprang to her eyes. She sat upright, clutching her leg, wailing like a child. This is miserable. I hate this house. I hate everything. And I hate Sir Aiden too. Of course, he heard her. What are you yelling about now? His voice rang from behind. She froze. He entered and looked around, his eyes pausing on the mess. You're adapting faster than I thought. Adaptation. I'm dying. She thrust her leg out like a wounded soldier. My knee. I think it's broken. I can't feel it. It's all over. He sighed. You complain too much. I'm serious. Rolling his eyes, Aiden walked over and, without warning, sat at her feet. Her breath caught. He lifted her leg with ease, inspecting the bruised knee. "Your legs are so thin," he muttered. "Are they even bones or twigs?" Her cheeks burned. "Why are you sitting so close?" He looked up and their eyes locked. "I have to check it, don't I?" Angel blinked. Why did her heart just skip? Was it the way he said it? The way he looked at her? Has he always been like this? Aiden offered to check the wound as he touched the hem of Angel's dress. She flinched, staring at him with wide eyes like he was about to commit an atrocity. He raised her left leg to check the knee she claimed was broken, and she nervously asked why he was touching her leg. He gave her a deadpan look, surprised at the absurd question. Didn't look like the leg was broken. She was clearly exaggerating again. He had actually heard a loud noise from his room and hurriedly came over, only to find her like this. He explained that he was just trying to check the leg she claimed was broken, but she snapped back, demanding why he was the one doing it and not a doctor. Trying to keep his cool, he told her there were no doctors nearby, and besides, they had medicine at home she could use. She dramatically complained about how embarrassed she felt that he was touching her and snapped at why he touched her without warning in the first place. She sternly warned him to check only the injury and nothing else. He scoffed like he cared. He was about to reach for her knee when she abruptly stopped him again, warning him to wash his hands before touching her dress, said it was too expensive. He asked flatly if it was the same dress already covered in dirt that she was warning him to be cautious of. She opened her mouth, ready to fire back, but apparently the words got choked in her throat. Dismissively, she asked him to just check it already and told him he was holding the wrong leg, that it was the right knee. He sighed, letting go to hold the right knee and checked it up close. She had very fine skin, like someone that bathed in milk and honey, but that was expected from a duke's daughter. He asked how she could have fallen with such shaggy clothes. She defended herself, saying she had been wearing such clothes all her life. He took a closer look as she bombarded him with questions about what he could see. He told her it was only a bruise. As expected, she started crying theatrically about her perfect skin. She cried out for him to get it treated immediately, sounding like it was some stab wound. He'd had enough for the day. He let go of her legs without a hint of care, stood up, and she let out a scream at the intensity. She asked where he was going if he wasn't going to tend to her. He turned, reminding her that he wasn't her servant, and said he could only tell her where to get the medicine if she was interested. She was clearly trying to keep her cool as she took a deep breath before pleading with him to guide her through it. He gave her a condition, that she had to stop wearing that bird cage or whatever it was underneath her dress. She dramatically gasped at his sarcasm, correcting him, saying it was a crinoline and not a bird cage. But he didn't care what it was called, he just needed her to stop wearing it around him. She complained, questioning why he'd take issue with what she wore. As she tried to stand, reaching for the dining chair for support, he deliberately pulled it away just before she could grab it. She screamed as she nearly lost her balance. She questioned his actions. He explained to her that this was exactly why he said she should stop wearing such dresses, because she could barely hold herself together, and she shouldn't expect him to run to her rescue every minute. She stubbornly claimed she could get up without his help, gripping the counter for support, but the more she tried, the more obvious the strain in her arms and the tremble in her stance became. Eventually, he did the dishonor of getting her up. She looked flustered. He told her plainly, the dress had to go. Not just because of how impractical it was, but because every time she wore it, his things ended up on the floor. But she wouldn't have any of it. He made it clear that he wouldn't help her up anymore whenever she fell, unless she decided to get rid of the bird cage or whatever she called it. She flared up, warning him to stop calling it a bird cage. He gave her a blank look, waiting for her to come down from her high horse. Seconds later, she gave in, promising not to wear such clothes again. He smirked. What a good girl. He beckoned her to follow him so he could give her better clothes and medications, and she followed, like the good girl she wasn't. Angel wasn't entirely comfortable with the idea of him picking her clothes, but it was his house, his rules. She followed him into a room, and he looked around like he was searching for something. He opened a closet with a few clothes and told her this was what she should wear for the meantime. She stared in disbelief. Was he being serious? The dresses looked so worn out, like something from ancient days. She asked why he had such dresses, and he stated that they belonged to his late mother. She quickly fixed her irritated expression and accepted to manage them. She was glad she hadn't insulted the clothes before he told her. She picked one of the dresses and could tell it had been kept with great care. He brought in a medicine box and handed it to her, saying she should get changed and apply the red medicine from the box to her wound. She stared at the box, unsure of how to go about it. She had never done this before. He noticed her expression and asked if she even knew how to use the medicine. She fired back, asking who he thought was dumb enough not to know. He immediately pointed at her. The audacity. She couldn't let it go without a fight. She mocked how bad his cooking was. That porridge had been awful. He defended himself, then dismissed the conversation, telling her to get ready quickly. She complained that she was going to be limited without maids, but he walked out of the room, saying he was going to clean up the mess she made in the kitchen. She sighed at his nonchalance. Relief washed through Aiden as he left her room. That woman was one hell of a case. He was already feeling woozy from dealing with her. The dress wasn't nearly as awful as it looked. Sure, it was plain, old, and gave major maid vibes. But it was comfortable, easy to move in. The buttons were in the front, convenient. No need to ask Sir Grumblepants for help. Still, she pouted at the mirror. Ugh, I look like a commoner. But her beauty? Unshaken, unmatched, intact. Then Grolrowl. Her stomach screamed, loud and rude, like it was staging a rebellion. She clutched her belly. Is that thunder, or oh wait, that's me. She hadn't eaten all day. No wonder I feel like I'm about to fade into the wind. Defeated, she dragged herself toward the kitchen. Halfway down the stairs, a familiar smell hit her nose. Warm, buttery, savory. Her eyes widened. Is that cheese scone? The scent pulled her like a spell. She found herself tiptoeing to the kitchen door, peeking in like a thief in the night. And there he was, Sir Aiden, standing over the counter, slicing meat with the precision of a trained chef. What in the name of heaven? He looked up, caught her staring, and waved her in. Come sit before you fall again. She frowned. The shade was unnecessary, but she obeyed. Did you use the medicine? He asked, slicing another piece. She blinked. Shoot. I did, she lied, voice too high, too quick. Totally forgot. He raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. Instead, he placed a plate in front of her. It looked like bread, but not quite. It's baked corn porridge. Polenta, he explained. Tastes better grilled. Her face contorted. So, recycled porridge? He ignored the sarcasm. Her stomach, however, betrayed her again with a low rumble. Giving in, she took a bite, eyes squeezed shut. Then, she snapped them open. The flavor, texture, the warmth. It was heaven. Soft inside, crisp on the edges, cheesy, buttery, divine. She blinked rapidly. What did you call this again? Polenta. Her mouth was already opening for another bite. She didn't say anything, just kept chewing with that wide-eyed look. Is it okay? Aiden asked, knowing the answer. She shrugged like she was tolerating it. TCH, typical Angel. Still, she didn't stop eating. He added eggs to the plate without asking. Try it, he urged. It's better that way. She did, and instantly regretted not eating sooner. It was delicious. Then she heard sizzling. A new scent danced into the air. Something was frying. She turned instinctively, eyes sparkling. He caught her. Want some? He asked. She gasped. Me? Gluttony? Never. Lies. Lies. All lies. I'd trade my soul for that right now. He placed the dish in front of her anyway. She stared at it like a queen resisting temptation. He sighed. You're bothersome, he muttered, cutting a generous chunk of meat into her plate. She tried to stop him. I'm full. You're drooling. Her eyes widened. She covered her mouth in horror. I'm a disgrace. I haven't eaten meat in days. Don't blame me. She finally gave in like he'd begged her or something, though judging by the unimpressed look on his face, he knew she was being dramatic. Still, the food? Better than before. Juicier. Softer. Perfect. She didn't hold back. Want more? He asked smugly. Just a few bites, she said, reaching for the dish again. She couldn't stop. Each bite made her forget her pride. Who is this man? Why does he cook like this? Is this a hidden restaurant? What's going on? She ate with such focus, small bites, delicate motions, but with obvious pleasure. He stared. He couldn't help it. Is it the food she's enjoying, or is it just her? Her lips, small, perfect. Her manners, surprisingly graceful. Her expressions, animated, real. What am I thinking? He stood up suddenly. She flinched. I need to get back to work, he said stiffly. She blinked. Okay. Put your dishes in the sink when you're done. Her lips curled. Why me? You're fine now. Do it. But my knees still hurt. He almost turned back, guilt poking at him, until he remembered who he was dealing with. Nope. Not falling for that. He grabbed the plates himself. He doesn't have time for this. He needed to clear his head. As he turned to leave, she called after him. You're going out? Yeah. She folded her arms. And you'll just leave me here? Alone? With nothing to do? Find something, she scoffed. Like what? I'm a guest. He paused. No, you're not, he said quietly. And he meant it. But he couldn't explain why. That's exactly why he needed to leave. Clean the kitchen if you're bored, he muttered, stepping out the door. But not before stealing one last glance at her. She looked confused. Annoyed. Kind of adorable. He hoped she'd be fine. Even though something inside him felt light, there was a strange guilt brewing beneath it all. And he didn't know why. He really left. Who the hell does he think he is? I'm supposed to clean? Me? She scoffed. I'm not here to do anything. Unless I absolutely have no choice. She crossed her arms, fuming. I swear if I ever become queen, he's the first person I'm firing. Later that evening, Angel handed Aiden a letter, neatly folded, faintly perfumed. She said it was for her father. Just to let him know she'd arrived safely. Aiden took it from her, slower than he meant to. The weight of the paper felt heavier than it should. Sending this meant going into town. And going into town meant seeing people. His chest tightened. He could already hear the whispers. Pointed stares. The echo of one word. Murderer. Stuck to him like tar no matter how many years had passed. Angel's voice broke through the spiral. Her eyes blinked up at him expectantly. He blinked the memory away. It wasn't worth it. Maybe doing this would buy him some quiet, for once. He took the letter. Angel lit up instantly. Smiling, bright-eyed, already walking off like she'd just received a present instead of handed over a task. She turned back and called cheerfully, I'll be writing more tomorrow. And just like that, she skipped down the hall, light as a feather. Aiden exhaled, slipping the letter into his coat pocket. TCH. What does she take me for, a messenger? 10 days later. Kitchen was warm, smelling of soup and butter. Herbs danced in the steam. Angel sat at the table with a half-filled plate in front of her. Aiden was by the stove, slicing vegetables with calm, steady motions. She asked about the letter. Had he gone to the capital yet? Any reply? He answered without looking up. He'd go when he was free. She asked again. He said, when the wheat finishes growing. She frowned. And when will that be? He didn't even glance back. Ask the wheat? Angel stared, her face tightening with frustration. Can't you just go before then? I'm busy. He dumped the vegetables into the boiling pot. Steam rose with a hiss. The room filled with the comforting smell of hot food, but it only irritated her more. She found herself inhaling deeply despite that. Why did it always smell so good? Why did it make her feel calmer? No. She needed answers. Maybe if she offered him money. She hesitated. No, I might need that later. Instead, she slumped forward and muttered something about being worried for her father's health. Aiden walked past her with a full dish. Didn't blink. She sighed internally. Is he even human? They ate in silence. She picked at her bread. He finally spoke, something about her father being just fine. Just like she was. Angel scoffed softly. Fine. The rooster outside screamed like a demon. She bit into her bread again. It was the brown one. She hated this one. He didn't apologize. Just said he didn't have time to bake another. As he chewed, his mind drifted back to an old dream. Quiet life. Somewhere green. Somewhere peaceful. Like his grandfather's. No war. No blood. No ghosts. Just land and silence. Then her voice cut in again. Are you even listening? He blinked. She was watching him with those soft, round eyes. There was something gentle about her then. Almost innocent. His heart stalled. He looked away quickly. What the hell was that? She flinched. His face must have turned cold again. He cleared his throat. Reached for something to say. The wheat will ripen soon. But he hesitated. The truth would only trigger her. Maybe in a month. Or 2. Her mouth fell open. That long? He nodded casually, clearing the table like it was nothing. She muttered about going herself. Just if she could borrow a horse. He shut it down immediately. Too dangerous. That did it. She stood. You're keeping me here on purpose. His voice rose without warning. I'm not your servant. Silence fell. Angel stood frozen. Her eyes wide, her mouth trembling. She looked small. Hurt. He stilled. That look. He'd seen it before. Philip's voice echoed in his memory, cold, commanding. Cruel. Same black hair. Same red eyes. Curse of imperial blood. He hated it. Hated seeing it reflected back at him. Did I do something wrong? Her voice was barely above a whisper. He turned away. Don't talk like that, he muttered. But when he looked back, her eyes were wet. Her lips trembled. Guilt punched him in the gut. He reached for the teapot, trying to smooth over the moment. Poured her a cup. Tea, he offered, voice low. Almost apologetic. She stared at it. Then, without warning, she shoved it aside. Cup clattered. You can drink your bitter tea alone, she shouted. Before he could react, she turned and stormed off. Angel, but the door slammed before he could finish. He stood there. Kitchen air suddenly cold. His hand rose slowly to the back of his neck. I shouldn't have said that. Angel sat curled on the bed, face buried in her pillow, sobbing, broken hiccups and sniffles muffled into the fabric. Thoughts swirled in her head like a storm. What if they've forgotten me already? What if life just went on without me like I was never there? Her chest ached. She thought of her mother, long gone. Of her father, always buried in government matters. And her? Her life had always been parties and pretty dresses, nothing that ever taught her what her heart truly felt. She lifted her head slowly, eyes swollen, lashes stuck together with tears. He yelled at her. Over something so small. Her nose wrinkled with anger. She hated him. Hated his cold eyes. Hated that she was stuck here. Sniffing, she wiped her cheeks. That was it. She was done. She'd leave the Diltons' farm tonight. No more second-guessing. No more waiting. Her father would help her. She was sure of it. But then, she hesitated. They were married. In a church. Would her word alone be enough to nullify that? Maybe not. Still, if they stayed apart, divorce would come eventually. Sir Aiden clearly despised her. He wouldn't fight to keep her. She nodded to herself. That settled it. Only one person might complicate things, the crown prince. But Aiden? He would never chase the emperor's throne again. That ambition was long dead. With resolve bubbling in her chest, Angel stood up and began packing. Nothing could stop her now. She tugged her dress over her head, changing quickly. It had been too long since she'd seen the capital. She couldn't afford to look pitiful. She lifted her crinoline, holding it in her hands, debating. Riding with it would be torture. She folded it instead and tucked it into her bag. Her fingers moved fast, grabbing her umbrella, brushing her hair, arranging her coat. If I knew it would end this way, she thought bitterly, I would have packed my riding clothes. She tiptoed to the door, cracking it open slowly. Her eyes scanned the hallway, no light, no sound. Aiden should be asleep by now. She slipped out, moving carefully. Her dress swayed behind her as she hurried, like a child sneaking out on a grand adventure. When I reach Father's house, I'll make you pay for this, she muttered in her head, running toward the exit. Just lend me a horse, sir. The Hestables were quiet until she arrived. The horses began to stir, neighing, pawing at the ground, restless. Shush, please, she begged under her breath, hushing them with her palms raised. They only grew louder. She winced. Sugar cubes. She should have brought sugar cubes. Now they looked possessed, snorting and clattering like they'd seen ghosts. Her arms dropped. This wasn't working. She spun around, sighing in frustration. At this point, I'd settle for a pig. But no. She clenched her fists dramatically. She had to leave tonight. By horse, the capital was only an hour away, 10 miles. Could she walk it? She paused, thinking hard. I could, couldn't I? 2 paths lay ahead of her. One to the right, narrow and winding. The other to the left, soft and open. She studied both for a moment, then chose the left. It looked easier. If I get lost, I'll just come back, she thought. With that, she jogged into the night. No plan, no map, just a stubborn heart and a dream of escape. Somewhere far away, in a dream, Aiden's face appeared, sweaty, bloodied, eyes strained. Preems. The stench of burned flesh filled the air. He was bound to a chair. Chains cut into his wrists. His shirt torn. His body shaking from pain. Rough voices shouted around him. Menacing. Angry. Who will you choose? He groaned. Jaw clenched. Blood trickled down his arm. His mouth open. Captain, please. His voice cracked, barely more than a whisper. The man grabbed his face, yanking it forward. His eyes glinted with cruelty. Choose. Others behind him shouted, Coward! Murderer! Parasite! Aiden's body trembled. Then the dream shifted. More screams. More blood. A field full of wounded soldiers. Mangled faces. They surrounded him, accusing. Murderer! His eyes widened. And then Angel, standing beside her father. Both of them glaring. She leaned closer and whispered with pure venom, Murderer! Aiden shot up in bed, eyes wild, chest heaving. He coughed violently, hand pressed to his ribs. Sweat clung to his skin as he knelt forward, breathing hard. No seizure. Not tonight. But his body still trembled. Years had passed. Why did the dream still feel this real? He reached for his kettle. Empty. He grabbed his lamp, sliding out of bed with quiet steps. As he walked toward the kitchen, his eyes flicked to Angel's door. Was she still mad? He hesitated. Waking her might make things worse. But then he noticed something. Her door. It was open. His brows knit in confusion. He raised the lamp higher and peered inside. My lady, he called gently. No answer. He stepped in. Her dress lay crumpled on the floor. His heart dropped. She was gone. His breath caught in his throat. Did she run away? He dashed out of the house, throwing on a coat. Ran to the horse stable. My lady, he called out. Only the neighing of horses answered. They were all still there, untouched. She didn't use a horse. Panic tightening in his chest, he ran around the farm, checking every nook and cranny. The pig stead. The fowl's cage. Angel. He shouted. Nothing. Why would he even think to search the pigstead? Right now, he was too confused to think logically. He sighed, gripping his throbbing head. Where could she have gone? Could she have? He shook the thought off. No. No matter how stupid, she wouldn't. But then he saw them, footprints. They looked fresh, feminine. Could they be hers? He narrowed his eyes, following the trail. She didn't go that way, right? Into the forest. An owl hooted overhead as Angel walked through the dark, lonely path. Already getting scared. The thought of bears and wolves freaked her out even more. For a moment, she thought about turning back. But she snapped out of it. No. She had to be brave. Besides, people lived nearby. Wild animals wouldn't just appear, right? Then, another crossroad. She panicked. Just how many crossroads are there? Still, she picked the right path, tying her ribbon to a tree branch as a marker, in case she got lost. She'd been doing that since the start of her escape. She scoffed. So many crossroads, it's costing me all my ribbons. But she reassured herself. I'll just buy more in the capital. She resumed her journey. She had barely walked 5 minutes. When the path ended, she stopped, eyes wide with shock and frustration. No way! Not ready to accept her fate, she hit the dead end with her umbrella. This can't be it. But it was. Resigned, she turned back, dragging her feet gloomily like a sad child. Her legs got scraped. Now she regretted not borrowing one of Aiden's shoes. She sat on a stone, exhausted. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten in hours. Suddenly, she remembered the tea Aiden offered earlier. She should have taken it. Then, a loud croak. She shrieked. What was that? Afrig leapt out of a bush. She screamed again. Why is there a frog here? But then, she realized something. Frogs only stay near water, right? In fairy tales? Could this frog be helpful? The frog croaked again and leapt ahead. She followed it. Is water that way, Mr. Frog? Wait for me. I want to drink cold water, she muttered sheepishly, struggling to drag her suitcase. Then she slipped and fell, tumbling down the slope with a loud cry. Meanwhile, Aiden was still searching, lamplight guiding his way. Just where did she disappear to? He had trailed her by the ribbons she'd tied to tree branches. He hadn't expected her to be that clever. Then tracks, something dragging on the ground. Now he stood at the end of the path. Still no sign of her. He felt a knot form in his chest. Bitten by a bear? Kidnapped? But no. There would have been signs, blood, struggle. Then, something. A scent. Perfume. He turned toward the source, lifting his lamp. Footprints. Leading to the river. His chest tightened. Don't tell me she slipped into the river? My lady, he called loudly, panic rising. My lady, are you there? Sir Aiden, a soft voice. He turned sharply. There she was, emerging from the bushes like a ghost bride, arms full of firewood, rough and dirty. No shoes. He exhaled, half in relief, half in disbelief. She was barefoot, shoeless, scratched, disheveled. He frowned. Why did you go into the forest alone? But before he could scold her, she ran and hugged him, tightly, like her life depended on it. He stammered, flustered. I was so scared, she cried, her voice trembling. I went too far and got hurt, it's so cold. Her sobs broke with every word. Aiden didn't react at first. 30 seconds passed. Then he slowly, hesitantly brought his arms around her and hugged her back. He sighed. He couldn't even be mad anymore. Minutes passed. Still, Angel didn't move. Her arms clung to him, face buried in his chest, trembling, maybe from cold, maybe from fear. He didn't know. But she wouldn't let go. He exhaled quietly. She'd catch a fever at this rate. He gently pulled back. She flinched. But all he did was drape his coat around her shoulders. Stop crying, he said softly. Let's get you home. She blinked up at him. Her lashes were sticky with tears. My shoes, she mumbled. I lost them in the water, and one of my stockings got dirty. He lowered his gaze. Mud clung to her bare heel. A scrape marked her ankle. Are you hurt? He asked. She nodded faintly. My ankle hurts a little. Without hesitation, Aiden crouched down. It's nothing serious, she tried. But her words stopped when his fingers touched her skin. Her heart jolted. Her breath hitched. It's twisted, he muttered, frowning. You can't walk like this. Before she could protest, he slipped an arm beneath her knees. With a smooth motion, he lifted her. She gasped. Wait. He adjusted his grip. You're light, he noted. Are you comfortable? No, she blurted. Then hold on to my neck before you fall. She hesitated, then slowly wrapped her arms around his neck, cheeks burning red. He turned, about to walk when she pointed. My bag, it's there. On the tree branch. He followed her gaze. Sure enough, a small case dangled from a crooked branch. I can hold the lamp, she offered. Or I can carry the bag while you— Don't bother, he cut her off. In one swift motion, he tucked the bag under his arm, took the lamp in the other, and kept walking. She watched him, eyes wide. He looked dependable. But in his head, is she stupid or just spiteful? He muttered to himself. Wobbling through the dark, no horse, no shoes, a twisted ankle. So this is what parenting feels like. Great. Definitely didn't sign up for this. As they walked, he asked dryly, You were trying to escape to the capital like this? What? No. I'm not that reckless, she huffed. I was just going to check on my letters, that's all. He raised an eyebrow. With a loaded suitcase? She turned her face away, muttering, Let's just leave it at that. They passed through a clearing. Aiden pointed down the darker path. If you'd gone that way, you would have crossed the border. I figured I was on the wrong path, she said quickly. Aiden scoffed. Yeah, sure. I did, she argued, clinging tighter to his neck. You're lucky I found you. Any later and you'd be a bear's meal by now, she gasped. There are bears. And leopards. Plenty of wild animals out here. It's not good to lie, sir, she whispered, clearly panicked. He smirked. I've already received enough punishment. Angel narrowed her eyes. Are you calling me the punishment? Aiden shrugged, his tone sarcastic. You're sharp. He looked away. But for a long second, his gaze had been fixed on her. She noticed. Why was he staring at her like that? She looked down at herself, mud-stained dress, leaves in her hair. Was it that obvious? Well, fine. A noble lady covered in dirt and grass was a rare sight. But what did she care? Seconds passed. Then silence stretched longer. Soon, her head drooped softly against his shoulder. Her breathing evened out. She'd fallen asleep. His eyes flicked to her. This girl. Moments later, they reached the house. He gave her a slight nudge. Wake up, he murmured. She stirred, blinking groggily. Already? Then her eyes widened in horror. I fell asleep? In his arms. Her cheeks went up in flames. But her gaze shifted, and there it was. The house. Stars hovered above it like guardians, their light spilling across the roof and yard. It looked warm. Peaceful. Like something out of a dream. She stared, lips parting slightly. So this is why he's obsessed with this place? Strangely, it eased the heaviness in her chest. Excuse me, sir, she whispered. He turned to her, still carrying her like she weighed nothing. She opened her mouth to speak. Sujoo. A loud sneeze burst from her before she could stop it. She froze in horror. Aiden blinked. You should wash up quickly, he said with a faint smile. She nodded stiffly, mortified. Her whole body curled with embarrassment. If you're dying to know what happens next, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment if you want to see part 2. Don't forget to turn on post notifications so you never miss new uploads from us. Your support keeps the story alive, one secret at a time. Until next time.